So a good friend of mine is a family law attorney out in California. I actually met him through this channel. He had reached out to me via email, and we connected and have been talking ever since. Became pretty good friends, and so, but yeah, he's been licensed since 2015 in the state of California, and so that means he entered into the legal world in a very interesting time in our culture where it was changing because of the Me Too movement, right? He explains how it really reshaped a lot of things. It drastically changed the atmosphere around family court when it comes to how people talk about accusations and abuse and power, credibility, sex, all those things. So, I mean, yeah, whether you think that the Me Too movement was good, bad, necessary, or exploited, it did. It changed the atmosphere around family court. And when we were having this conversation a few days ago, the thing that he told me, it's been sitting in the back of my mind because it was just one of those conversations where it was an awakening. It was an epiphany moment. There's this entire layer of reality that most men never think about until it's too late, until their life is on fire, basically. And so over the last 5 years, he's worked on more than 30 paternity fraud cases. And not only that, he worked on over 30 paternity fraud cases where a DNA test confirmed that the man was not the biological father. But that's not even the part that got me. The part that got me was when he said that when certain men come to him with a custody situation, and then, you know, the details, they just start sounding a certain way to him, and so he's learned to tell them to get a DNA test. Right? Get a DNA test and make sure you're even the father before you fight for a child that might not even be yours. Right? He's just connecting dots based off of them explaining the context and the situation, right? And yeah, that can sound extreme to you, to them. And, but yeah, this is why he tells them that. So what he told me is that in those cases, when the situation, while they're divulging all this information, if it raises enough red flags, if he hears certain things, certain key words from that guy, he recommends getting DNA testing. And he said that more than 80% of the tests have come back negative, right? It's wild. It came back that the man was not the father. So he's quite adept at pattern recognition, right? But what makes it so disturbing is that a lot of these men, they were not approaching him, walking into his office, thinking about paternity. That's the kicker. They were thinking about custody. Paternity was not even in their mind. They weren't even questioning that. It was the thing that they had never questioned before. And that's what makes this conversation that we had so uncomfortable. Most men are not prepared to ask that question, because asking it seems absurd for most of these men. Of course I'm the father. That's what they're thinking. So the average man, he avoids it. He avoids that question because he assumes that the child is his, because that is what he was told, right? That's what he believes for whatever reason. And he built his life around that certainty and that belief, and didn't think for a second to question it. And then he gets dragged into family court, and then suddenly, every part of his life now is being examined by this system that does not care how emotionally attached he is to the story that he believed. And my attorney friend, he admitted that he was, as long as he's been in the system working with these men, he's become very jaded and cynical because of the system and what he's witnessed, because he's seen this over and over again, time and time again. He's just seen so many men suffer and have their lives ruined. and he sees how the system actually works. He's got skin in the game, right? Firsthand experience. He's representing these poor men. And he's been doing this long enough and seen this enough times that the patterns, they just jump out at him pretty easily. So it's wild. I mean, you from what he said, you start hearing the timeline and the relationship history and the way that the mother talks about the father, and to him the story just doesn't quite add up, and then boom, then you ask then he ends up asking the question that most of these men don't even think to ask, right? Are you sure this is your child? And yeah, that is a brutal question to ask a man, especially one who came in because he wanted to be a father, right? Because he thought he was the father. But in family court, the brutal questions that you ask early can potentially save you, I would say, years of all kinds of damage: financial damage, legal damage, psychological damage, you name it. So yeah, but yeah, I get it. It's just, it's an emotional topic. It's an emotional experience. There's a lot at stake. There's identity at stake for you and your supposed child. But there's also there was a bigger piece to this conversation as well. Not a bigger, but it's just, this is where the conversation kind of turned. It turned into something, I would say, bigger than paternity. Because he started talking about abuse allegations in family court, especially divorce cases involving children. Because according to him, in the divorce cases that he's worked on, this is not broadly speaking, these are his cases, his caseload. So he said that allegations of abuse, they come up constantly. He estimated that 50 to 75% of divorces from his caseload, of those, someone makes some kind of allegation of abuse. And within that, he said women are the ones making allegations involving themselves or the children in around 60 to 65% of those cases. Now, before someone deliberately misunderstands the point, the issue is not that abuse never happens. Of course it does. Abuse happens all the time, yes, and it should be taken seriously. The issue here is that family court creates a situation where an accusation can become a weapon before the truth has been sorted out, right? Reason being, when you're a man entering into the family court system, you are guilty until proven innocent, okay? And once abuse allegations are made, everything changes, right? The father is no longer just a parent asking for more time with his child or legal footing. He's now defending himself against a label, right? And the label is being a monster. So every interaction and emotional reaction, you name it, it gets interpreted through suspicion, and everything possible will be used against him to paint him as this unstable, unsafe, angry, dangerous man, right? This boogeyman. And I myself am no stranger to these kinds of accusations and how a man is treated in that situation, because I've been on the receiving end of it more than once. And if you react badly to being falsely accused, that reaction that you make, it can become the thing that's used to justify the accusation. So that is a trap that a lot of men fall into. And my attorney friend's opinion is that the way domestic violence is defined under California Family Code, it's so broad that if men actually reported what happened to them inside those relationships, especially once the marriage is breaking down, he said a huge number of men would qualify as victims, right? His view was that by the time divorce proceedings begin, 90% or more of men have probably experienced something that could be categorized as domestic violence under those broad definitions. But of course, they don't report them because they're men, right? They tell themselves that nobody would care anyway, and they don't want to look weak, right? No man wants to be the guy saying his wife or his girlfriend abused him, right? They already know how that sounds to the world, right? So they stay quiet about it, of course. And then their court case starts, and then suddenly that same system they never thought to use is now being used against them. And that's the part that men need to understand before they get there, right? You cannot wait until you're in the courtroom to start thinking clearly about your legal reality. By that point, I mean, your feelings are already all over the place. You're just, the pit of your stomach is just, it's tight. Your chest is tight. You're not in the best state for making clear decisions. I mean, your nervous system is jittery. It's panicking. You're in survival mode, especially while you're in the midst of it, in the thick of it, when the other party is telling the court a version of you that is a lie. And as he explained in California, especially, he said that it's almost impossible to sue the other party for false allegations in any meaningful way. So yeah, even if the allegations if it damages your reputation and ruins your relationship with your child and costs you tons of money, bankrupts you, changes the way the court looks at you, there's no real consequences for the person who made them. And that should bother everyone. Because a system with no meaningful penalty for false accusations doesn't just harm innocent men, it also cheapens real victims. It turns serious claims into litigation tactics. I've seen them. It teaches people that the fastest way to gain leverage, to get what you want, to enact some malevolence, is to make the other parent look like a monster, when in fact you are the monster. The other parent. And once that becomes normal, the children are no longer being protected. And yeah, men can do this, but the majority, from what has been seen, is from my friend and in the broader scope of things, is women doing this to fathers. Fathers are typically, their heads are on the chopping block. And it's all about, nothing's really cut and dry. It's all about what country you're in, what state you're in, what county you're in, what city, like what town, what city, what judge you get, how they're feeling that day. There's a lot. The child at this point is being used as the emotional hostage and a weapon in a malevolent legal strategy. And that's why this conversation stayed with me. I got skin in the game, but also because most men, they're still walking into marriage and fatherhood and family court with this outdated assumption, right? This antiquated way of thinking, and they think that if they're just honest and show that they love their child, they show their genuine love for their child, then the truth will come out in the wash. It'll naturally just protect them. But the truth does not protect you automatically. It doesn't. It doesn't work the way that you think it does. And yeah, the truth, if it is to work, it has to be documented. It has to be proven and presented in such a way to convince the judge you have to lay it out so that they can connect the dots, so that the judge can see the patterns of the manipulation and the injustices against you and the child. But even still, sometimes the truth and even the evidence doesn't matter. Like I said, it just depends on so many different variables on whether there's justice or not. A lot of men are losing. They're losing because they are naive about the system and its incentives. They don't think about how fast things can go from love to litigation, and how little the court may care about what they assume is obvious. So, yeah, when I hear a family law attorney say that he has seen more than 30 paternity fraud cases, and when the red flag cases he sends for testing come back negative more than 80% of the time, I don't hear some random statistic that's meant to scare men. I hear a warning about how many men are walking around with blind spots that can destroy their lives. And the hardest part is that the men who most need to hear this are usually the ones who think they don't. That's unfortunate. Because, yeah, they think that their girlfriend or their wife, they think their girlfriend would never do that. They think that their wife would never make such accusations, right? They think that the mother of their child would never in a million years use their daughter or their sons as leverage against them in any way, right? They think that the court will obviously see who they really are, and the years of being a good man, it will just speak for itself, right? And then they find out that the system just doesn't work that way, right? The system doesn't care about what you know, right? It only cares about what you can prove in court, maybe. And if you're a man, it's a long road in the family court system, because you have a target on your back from the very beginning. The mother is assumed the primary caregiver, right? She doesn't have anything to prove, but you do. You as the man, as the father, you have to prove you're worthy to the court before they will see even the slightest glimpse of truth about you, about your genuine love for your child, right? If it happens to be your child. That's why men need to stop treating family court like a place where justice will prevail. Yeah, it might, but it may cost you years of your life to get there. And you may get a fraction of what you deserve and what your child deserves. But yeah, you get your paperwork right, you keep your communication clean, don't have emotional conversations. It's business transactions only, right? Got to be business-like. And do not ignore red flags because you're afraid of what the answer might be. Right? And if there is any serious uncertainty around paternity, handle it early. Handle it early. Because finding out the truth early, yeah, it's painful. Sure, very painful. But finding out after your entire life has been built around a lie I'd say is a different kind of pain, and it's way more devastating. Based on what my friend told me. I haven't experienced that, but based off of what he's seen, it's pretty bad. So, in closing, a lot of men out there are not just fighting to see their children, they're fighting for children that aren't even theirs, and they don't even know it. Don't be that guy.